Thanks, Ben. Tonight on BBC London, the aftermath of Storm Isha. The clean-up continues, but there was chaos for some passengers after trains and planes were diverted.
I got about 2 hours sleep underneath the sofa in Terminal 2 of Charles de Gaulle, using my bag as a pillow and my jacket as a duvet.
And there's more bad weather to come tomorrow. We'll have the latest on the 10th named storm of the winter. Also ahead, the military veterans facing eviction. Chelsea Football Club wants to buy the land for redevelopment. Plus, the pandemic puppies behaving badly, leaving some owners struggling to cope. And
you are in charge of 35 planes and 350 air crewmen.
the bomber boys who manned the Flying Fortress were on the red carpet in Piccadilly with the stars of a new TV drama. Good evening and welcome to the programme. I'm Victoria Hollins. So, diverted flights, damaged buildings and delays to train services. Storm Isha certainly made an impact in the capital. Firefighters attended around 100 incidents as the 9th named storm of the winter hit London overnight. The winds have now eased, but for many, the chaos and clean-up continues, as Lee Milner reports.
This is the moment a British Airways flight had to abandon a landing at Heathrow Airport yesterday afternoon because of Storm Isha's powerful winds.
Oh, she's up, she's down, she's gone. Past 24 hours have been pretty hectic. Started yesterday morning. We weren't completely sure about what the schedule was going to be like in terms of operations. And how soon the winds were going to pick up. We got out there around about midday. Things just started to happen, and then literally the winds picked up during the course of the day, and we just went out there and filmed the planes attempting to land.
Dozens of flights had to be diverted because of the storm, including this one, which was only supposed to fly from Jersey to Gatwick yesterday, but instead it ended up landing in Paris. Luke was on board.
So since Jersey to London's a domestic flight, quite a few of us didn't have passports. So once we got to Paris, they kind of didn't really know what to do with us. So obviously couldn't go through passport control, so we were just ushered into the terminal. I found a good spot underneath sort of sofa, I guess, because obviously there's still quite a few lights on. But to be honest, Charles de Gaulle Airport's pretty nice. Like, definitely worse airports to be stuck in.
In southeast London, Storm Isha was so powerful it brought down a brick wall and pushed a car down the road. Meanwhile, over in Bromley, this resident had a lucky escape after his next-door neighbour's roof came crashing into his garden. And there are more strong winds on the way as another storm, Storm Jocelyn, makes its way to the UK tomorrow.
Well, let's join Lee, who's live at Heathrow for us this evening. And Lee, the weather may still be a bit breezy, but has the travel situation improved at all?
Unfortunately not. As you can imagine, it's been a bit of a tricky start to the week for airports, as passengers, planes and pilots have all ended up in places, well, they didn't expect to be honest, with the diversions. British Airways has told us so far they've grounded 22 short-haul flights to and from Heathrow. Meanwhile, over at London City Airport, 22 flights have also been grounded there as well. A spokesperson for BA said, like any other airline, we've had to make schedule adjustments due to the adverse weather conditions. We've apologised to our customers and our teams are working hard to get them on their way as quickly as possible. Well, as for the trains, commuters across London using TfL and National Rail services yesterday and this morning had severe travel disruption as Storm Isha blew items onto the tracks, causing some damage there. Last night, Avanti West Coast, which runs trains out of London Euston, was actually forced to end its services, leaving people travelling up north with limited options. But today, the operator said it was back up and running, although travellers should expect some delays and disruption. And that seems to be the key message today as rail operators continue to pick up the pieces from yesterday and prepare for what's to come tomorrow.
Oh dear, Lee, thanks very much. Lots more to come tonight, including...
Central for the UK premiere of the latest World War II drama produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Join me later to meet some of the stars.
Dozens of military veterans living in supported accommodation next to Chelsea's Stamford Bridge Stadium are facing eviction. The football club want to buy the Sir Oswald Stoll mansions from the charity that owns the site. But bosses at the charity say the sale is necessary to buy new, higher quality properties for its residents and secure its financial future. Tolu Adeoye has more.
Match day at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea women versus Man U. Veterans living in a housing complex right next door to the stadium are well used to the buzz in the area, but their days living here could be numbered. The Sir Oswald Stoll mansions are to be sold to Chelsea Football Club, meaning dozens of residents now face eviction.
The thing that worries me most is the fact of becoming homeless and the detrimental effect it might have on my mental health issues, as many of the residents in here suffer.
The mansions were originally donated to house veterans more than a century ago by Sir Oswald Stoll, a businessman and philanthropist. Today, the Stoll charity, which owns the building, has become the leading provider for supported housing for veterans. It says it has no choice but to sell the site in order to provide newer, better quality housing and secure the long-term financial stability of the charity.
We've got to the point where the building's difficult to heat, it's difficult to maintain, it's difficult to provide the quality of accommodation that the veterans deserve. So this is about planning ahead, being proactive. No one will be left behind, no one will be homeless. Even if someone decides to move to a different housing provider or a different place and decides not to come with us as we go to the future, we will make sure we offer them 12 months support wherever they go.
But there are calls for a pause to the sale. Hammersmith and Fulham Council has hosted meetings between the veterans of the charity and Chelsea.
I understand this deal is worth £80 million to Stoll, and they say they need this money so they can look after the veterans of the future. I think it's ridiculous that you build a charity which sacrifices the veterans of the present for the veterans of the future. There has to be a better way forward.
Chelsea has yet to respond to our request for a comment on the situation. For residents like Guy, this is about more than just a roof over their heads.
The thing I love most about living here is obviously the community factor. Everyone supports everyone. There's never been any clarity, and that's all we've ever asked. We're ex-military. Don't treat us like children, treat us like adults.
Around 20,000 people have signed a petition against the sale. They believe going ahead would go against everything the charity stands for. Tolu Adeoye, BBC London.
Users of a West London bus route say they're fed up that buses often don't stop to pick them up. The number 18 passes through Kensal Town. Transport for London say bus drivers won't stop if the lower floor is full of passengers, regardless if there's plenty of space up top. It's causing frustration for many, as our transport correspondent Tom Edwards explains.
It's what bus users dread, the bus that doesn't stop. This is the number 18 in Kensal Town, and residents here are fed up because it doesn't stop on the Harrow Road quite a lot.
Sometimes what the buses do is they don't stop at the stop, they stop just short of the bus stop over there to let passengers off. And so I then have to run from here, run like crazy over to where the bus has stopped. I get in the back exit, through the exit, make my way through to the front and tap in. And then you go upstairs and there's loads of free seats. I mean, there was no reason for the driver not to let passengers on.
The non-stopping buses were filmed by Paul Moss, a journalist for BBC News. He says the number 18 regularly doesn't stop.
It is strange because we do have other buses at the bus stop, the 28 and the 228, and they always stop. I've never seen one of them go past. And once I was on the 18 and there was a ticket inspector, so I said, look, can you explain why does this bus often not stop? And the ticket inspector was actually very honest and said, look, the schedule is too tight and the drivers have been told if you're late, if you don't have time, then just, and this was the inspector's words, then just go, go, go. So it seems that the bus simply doesn't have time to pick up passengers, which I think is what buses are for.
He's not the only resident who has complained to Transport for London. Ben Bradshaw is an MP. He also uses the number 18.
I've never experienced this on any other bus in London. I use the buses quite a lot when I'm here. And it seems to be a particular problem on the 18, which, yes, is a very busy bus route and probably needs more buses on it. But that makes it even more inexplicable that the bus doesn't stop even though there are seats on it.
TfL says its policy is buses must stop unless they're full. But if the downstairs is full, even if it's empty upstairs, the bus won't stop. It says it will now try and get drivers to move passengers upstairs.
The safety legitimate reason for not stopping is that the bus is full. Now that could just be the lower deck, but obviously buses with lots and lots of passengers can have an impact to the driver's line of sight. But if a bus is full, the driver is instructed to slow down so the customers can see that the bus is full and the reason why it's not stopping. But again, if it's for any of those reasons, encourage them to report and we can try and make it better.
I just want the bus to stop at the bus stop as it's supposed to and let passengers on. Of course, we all know sometimes there are moments when the bus is too full, there isn't room for passengers. Fine, I get that. But when there is room, when they have got time, I just like the bus to stop.
Users of the 18 hope things will now change. At the moment, though, they're stuck with a bus that sometimes doesn't stop. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Now, there was a big jump in the number of people buying puppies during the pandemic. New research suggests many aren't very well behaved. The Royal Veterinary College has found problem behaviour like separation anxiety and aggression towards other dogs. And owners are more likely to use punishment in training, which can make behaviour worse. Well, to discuss some of those issues, I'm joined by Dan O'Neill, who was involved in the study, and Anna Webb, who's a dog behaviour expert and host of a Dogs Life podcast, along with Mr. Binks, who's coming as well. Thank you very much. To you, Dan, first of all, can you tell us what the problems are that you established as part of this study, this research?
Yeah, Victoria, thank you for letting me on here. The key message from the study was that almost all, 97% of people identified at least one problem behaviour with their dog. So in other words, dogs are living, sentient beings. They express their own behaviours, but a lot of those behaviours really weren't problems with the dog, they were problems with us as humans and what we expect from our dogs. The top ones were dogs pulling on their leads when they're out for a walk, dogs jumping up at their owners or at strangers, and dogs not coming back when they're called. So a lot of these can be trained out of the dogs with good training.
And Anna, is this something that is, would you say, got worse since the pandemic? Or these sound like problems that a lot of owners would always have had?
Well, yes, I think if you've not had a dog before, it's very easy to humanise your dog and think that your dog is a little person in a furry suit. Therefore, often messages do get lost in translation. But of course, to train the recall and stop pulling on the lead, these aren't difficult to train and offer different alternative behaviours.
Was socialisation a problem, though, that we just didn't see that as much of that?
Absolutely. Look, in fairness, it's really not the dog's fault that any of this is happening. Nobody could socialise their dogs properly. And of course, when you get a puppy, you're blessed to have a puppy, but it's so important to maximise those formative months. Dogs' brains develop so much quicker than ours. So, you know, you need to get them out, meeting lots of people, meeting lots of dogs, but in a controlled, measured fashion.
Dan, you mentioned at the beginning adverse training. Just tell us what you mean by that and what people have said to you about it.
Yeah, aversive training. Aversive training is where, well, there's two ways of training. We can train in a positive, reward-based way, where we reward good behaviour, or we can do aversive training where we punish what we perceive as being bad behaviour. 80% of people in this study reported they were using aversive behaviour training. So that means yanking on the dog's leads if they're pulling, it means pushing the dogs away if they jump up, shouting at the dogs, sometimes even hitting the dogs. Dogs just love their owners. So on the one hand, if they jump up to express their love and then they get hit or shouted at, it just leads to anxiety and stress, and it makes the problems worse.
And so, Anna, I imagine you advocate for positive reinforcement.
Totally. You know, I was shocked by these figures, I'll be honest with you. You know, as Dan says, you know, science concurs that aversive training, you know, it does nothing to build your relationship with your dog, and it can, ironically, actually reinforce the behaviour that you're trying to stop.
Now, I've got to hold my hands up here and say I am a lockdown puppy buyer, and I found the first 6 months really, really hard. The thing I still, and it's got a lot better, by the way, and I love her dearly, but the thing I still struggle with is that sense of when I walk through the front door, she runs up to me and is really excited, and then I'm really excited with her, and from what I've read, from what you have to say, that's not the right way to behave. Is that correct?
It really is. Training separation anxiety to not happen. It begins at the get-go, just room to room initially, way before you're leaving the front door. But it's the coming in that's the important bit, to really try and just avert your gaze from your dog, not to reward all that mad excitement, because you don't know...
Which is really hard, actually.
Which is really hard. Look, you know,
she rolls over and wants a tummy rub.
I'm guilty of it every now and again. But, you know, the psychology is you don't know what the dog's thinking. So the dog might be thinking, oh, thank goodness Mum didn't get run over by a bus. And there might be some fear or anxiety in her thoughts, so you're rewarding it accidentally.
And Dan, what did you most take away from what you heard from all of these people you spoke to?
The first thing we took away is that each dog is unique, and we need to treat a dog as unique. The second thing is that they are dogs, and dogs behave as dogs, and we can train them to behave the way we would like them to behave, but we have to accept them as being unique. The third thing is, even on separation-related behaviour, there was less risk of that if dogs had other dogs in the house. So in other words, they don't necessarily need human companionship. But the key message was that despite all of this, these dogs still give so much positive joy and fun and support to their owners. Dogs are just wonderful. And
I finally imagine you would agree with all of that.
Absolutely. Look, if you're thinking about getting a dog, I do urge everyone to opt to adopt Doe Shop, where you're matched for compatibility by experts at rescues. And remember, a dog is for life.
Well, thank you both very much indeed for your time, and well done, Mr. Binks, for being so well behaved, much more so than my dog, I have to say.
Thank you.
Well, you can hear more from Anna along with Joe Good on Barking at the Moon, which airs nationally on BBC Local Radio on Friday nights from 10 o'clock. Well, the welfare of our pets is something very close to a lot of our hearts, as is highlighting the stories that matter to you. Well, earlier this month, Sheila Savage from Waltham Forest got in touch to tell us about a pet food bank she runs at her local supermarket. She collects donations and makes them accessible to people with pets struggling with the cost of living. We went along to meet her and the people using the service.
If this wasn't here, it'd be hugely stressful. There'd be a lot of anxiety about the cost of caring for my dog. Giving her up would be an absolutely horrible thought.
Thank you so much for your donation. That's really Having a pet to many people is the only companion that they have. The pet food bank was needed as so many animals were being surrendered because people just couldn't afford to feed them. And they were having to choose between feeding themselves and their families or a pet. Waltham Forest Pet Food Bank was set up between a group of local volunteers and Tesco Community Champion, allowing us a distribution space and storage.
We cater for everybody, even like small rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, everything. I bring all the donations here on my bike. Usually it's food that their animals don't like no more, or some literally do buy it every couple of weeks for me to pick it up.
I was diagnosed with a brain tumour a few months ago, and the reason I come is largely due to relying on benefits at the moment, and with the cost of living increases, the benefits aren't stretching as much as they have done previously.
If we didn't have the Waltham Forest Pet Food Bank, I have no doubt in my mind that many animals would have been surrendered. And it's a wonderful feeling when you know that people have a lifeline, if you like, for their pet.
Now it's been billed as Band of Brothers in the Sky, produced by Steven Spielberg and film royalty Tom Hanks. The new TV series, Masters of the Air, is premiering in London tonight, ahead of its release on Friday. Among the stars is Londoner Callum Turner, Elvis star Austin Butler and Barry Keoghan. We'll be hearing from some of them in a moment, but first, here's a taste of the new series.
Lord, guard and guide the men who fly through the great spaces of the sky.
Are we Tuskegee men or what?
Sir, yes, sir! Be with them traversing the air in darkening storms or sunshine fair.
I think we may be done. We are going to sit here and take it. We're going to stick with our mission as long as we can fly.
We won't go without a fight.
Well, our reporter Laxmi Gopal has been on the red carpet at the Picture House in Piccadilly Circus.
With me is Raf Law, one of the cast members. So Raf, tell me, what were some of the things that you had to bear in mind when reflecting and representing real lives during World War II?
Yes, I mean, from day one, I felt that added pressure, but also a positive pressure to kind of pay homage to this character and the men and the story that we're telling. I really wanted to go through the process and be quite precise with it. My character wrote a book with The Forgotten Man, which kind of speaks all about the psychological torment that he was going through fixing these planes, but the guilt he had when they didn't return. And I felt really honoured to be able to show that story, because a lot of the times the ground crew, the flight chiefs, they don't get that story, they don't get that kind of that narrative, and they were just as integral to the operations that were going on. So I did a lot of research. I reached out to the family and they gave me a lot of support and stories about their father. There was a boot camp where we were kind of bonded, and we were led by Captain Dale Dye, who has the formula for that military crew glue. So there was so much to go by. And then once I kind of had done my research and we were there, I just really wanted to find my own version of Ken Lemons and pay respect to the family and try and make it as true and real as I could. Obviously, you can never compare. I'm trying to understand playing a 19-year-old who's responsible for 50 lives or more. It's a lot to get your head round, but to just try and understand why we're telling this story and to just pay respect to the families, that was my key.
Callum, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for speaking to us. What sense of responsibility did you feel about portraying characters who are real people who played a really important part in the Second World War?
You know, whenever you take on a part, there's a responsibility, but with these guys, they saved the world. And without these guys, we wouldn't be here. And it's an honor to represent them and to shine a light on their story and what they did for us. And they put themselves in the most volatile atmosphere ever, known to man. And they did it for us, so it's an absolute honor.
And you must have learned something by discovering more about these stories. And actually, you had quite an interesting story to tell about how your own grandfather signed up.
Yeah. My granddad was 16 years old. He come home from school with a bit of paper and he said to his mum, "Sign this, it's a school trip." Where he was to go to war. When he was 17, he went.
That's incredible. Yeah. As a Londoner, how does it feel to you to see this premiere happening here in the capital on such an important story?
You know, for me, this is my favourite cinema, and the Prince Charles is one of my favourite cinemas. So to be here, I come here all the time. It's a real pinch me moment, and I'm really enjoying it.
Excellent. Well, Callum, thank you. And
nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well. And the 9 episodes of this will be released. The first one's being released this Friday on Apple TV+.
Laxmi Gopal there on the red carpet. Now, when Pollock's Toy Museum closed its central London home in Fitzrovia last year, the owners had to find somewhere new to house many of its historic toys. About 20,000 teddy bears, dolls, games and other toys were placed into storage. But now some exhibits have found a temporary home at a new pop-up museum in Croydon.
You can find anything from teddy bears to Mr. Punch.
Buses, cars, trains.
There's a lot of interesting things here. People think Pollock's Toy Museum is for children. It's not, because adults come in and they just light up. It's a magical collection of dolls, bears, mysterious folk items. What do you think this machine will do if I put a penny in it?
The museum began under that name, Pollock's Toy Museum, in about 1956. People keep toys in their families. We like to collect the stories. You immediately think, who cuddled this teddy bear?
He was bought by the owner's auntie. The bombs were raining down and he was very frightened. So an auntie bought Ted as his companion. When that little boy grew up and had 2 children of his own, Big Ted belonged to his son, I think, and Little Ted belonged to his daughter.
We are temporarily in the Whitgift Centre in Croydon. Retail is a bit in the doldrums at the moment. There are a lot of empty shops around. That means that the owners of the shops are often quite pleased for somebody to come in and do something that's interesting and attractive. The space we're in is not a permanent home.
I think, over the last year we've been struggling really hard to make sure that it survives. It just touches people's hearts, and I feel the same way. It's just really special to be part of something. It's a piece of history.
Lovely. OK, it's time for a check on the weather with Kate Kinsella. And Kate, you've been pretty busy, I imagine.
Busy, and it doesn't seem to be ending either, Victoria. Good evening. We have had a very blustery day in the wake of Storm Isha, of course. Now, overnight last night, as you were hearing earlier on in the programme, Heathrow, we had a gust of 56 miles per hour. Kenley, we saw gusts of 58 miles per hour, so strong winds. And many of us woke up to scenes like this. Trees down across London and across the surrounding area. It has still been quite breezy today. We've had gusts of around 43 miles per hour, and it's still pretty blustery as we head into the evening. Now, we've also had 1 or 2 showers today. Not loads. We've actually had a decent amount of sunshine, especially earlier on today. But these showers will blow through this evening, and then overnight it should be largely clear. Now, the wind, it is going to fall a little bit lighter, but only a very brief bit of respite ahead of our next windy episode tomorrow. But temperatures overnight, as Storm Isha cleared out of the way, some colder air from the northwest filtered in, so 2 to 5 Celsius. It is going to feel a bit chillier than last night. Now for tomorrow, this is our next named storm, this deep area of low pressure which will move in towards the northwest and across the UK. Now that's Storm Jocelyn. Now we're looking at gusts of wind across London through tomorrow afternoon. We're going to start to see it strengthen. So during the daytime, probably around 35 to 40 miles per hour. We'll see some rain sweeping through in the morning, followed by some patchier lighter rain for the afternoon, but it is going to get blustery. The strongest of the winds associated with Storm Jocelyn further north, but temperatures tomorrow again very mild at 14 Celsius. Then overnight the wind is going to strengthen further. We're going to see them get up to around 45, potentially 50 miles per hour in more exposed areas. Bit of rain, but that will sweep through the early hours, becoming clear and dry. But we're still going to feel the wind. Temperatures overnight 8 to 11 Celsius, so it's still going to be very blustery. Now as we head into Wednesday itself, a brief bit of respite. That storm, you can see Jocelyn moving across eastwards. Behind it, brief ridge of high pressure. There is a little bit of high cloud around, so some hazy sunshine around on Wednesday, or rather Wednesday into Thursday. Temperatures still mild though at 12 Celsius. And as we head through the remainder of this week, it should stay dry and mild. Victoria.
Good news for some. Thanks very much indeed. OK, tonight's main headline now. The UK is clearing up after the impact of Storm Isha. Gusts of up to 99 miles an hour caused widespread damage in many parts of the country, with trees and power lines brought down. And that's it from me. But do head to our website to find out why plans to increase the size of events at Victoria Park in East London are proving controversial. I'll be back at 10:30. From all of us here, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.